Welcome to Martech CXO Dialogues. This is a podcast by Niswey where we speak to CXOs from some of the biggest and brightest enterprises in India and have them share the strategies, learnings, and insights that led them to drive massive Martech-enabled growth in their organizations. I'm Suma, co-founder at Niswey.
And I'm Adarsh Noronha, HubSpot Country Director for India and SAARC. And together, we will uncover what it takes to find success with Martech in the Indian business context.
On the panel today, our guest is Professor Subin Sudhir, who is an associate professor at IIM Indore. He's also the chair of executive education programs at IIM Indore. Professor Subin combines his research in marketing management with a deep understanding of the challenges faced by current CXOs across organizations to enable the design of impactful solutions. We are happy to have Professor Subin Sudhir from IIM Indore here. And of course, there's Addy from HubSpot. And today's topic, we are going to delve into the idea of how can the CMOs work on getting a better budget for their requirements this year. How can CMOs work towards that? So that's the topic of discussion today. And I would like to start off with a data point, which says that 71% of CMOs think that they don't get enough budget to execute their full strategy. This is from Gartner from last year. I'm just wanting to know if this is true this year too. And is it true for Indian CMOs as well?
I'm keen to hear from Professor his initial thoughts before I chime in, Professor.
I think this is true for all CMOs because a lot of times CMOs also have a little bit of a salesperson within themselves. So CMOs, as salespeople, would always want to under-promise and over-deliver. And one way in which they are able to ensure that they are at least building a perception that they are doing as much as they can is by identifying shortages in budgets or not being able to do all that they want. This is a lighter point, which generally a lot of CMOs discuss with me when we have when we have informal discussions. But on a serious note, we are going through a very dynamic space. I generally see a lot of organizations having a digital divide. Now, when I say digital divide, I see that a lot of CMOs or senior executives in organizations, they come from the pre-digital era. They have struggled, they have been on the field, they understand consumers, they understand the channel, they understand how the industry functions, but they might not be experts in terms of understanding marketing technology. They might not be experts in terms of understanding the AI applications in marketing and things like that. So there is a need that is felt among all of these senior executives that they might want to spend on all different fronts that gives them a possible opportunity. So that is also a reason why perceptually the CMOs might feel that they're not getting as much resources to dedicate into all activities that they want. Having said that, we also have to remember in the last 3 or 4 decades, the marketing function in organizations has gone through a lot of turmoil in terms of technology adoption and in terms of technology implementation. We start off with the entire CRM saga, where you had a lot of organizations which were getting into CRM. At an organization level, of course, we had ERP, we had DSS, we had HRMS systems, and a lot of automation has happened. But especially when it comes to marketers, a lot of organizations went into very expensive CRM solutions and probably might not have been able to establish the ROIs even after a decade of implementing it. So that is where there is also a lot of organizational memory that spending left, right, and center, if I may use that word, may not be worthwhile. So CMOs are asked to defend their budget. CMOs are asked to justify what is going to be the ROI, and all organizations are moving towards a performance marketing philosophy. So that is where CMOs are naturally going to have to make do with the budget they have, and definitely CMOs across the world, especially in India, feel that they have to make do with a smaller than expected budget or smaller than required budget for running their campaigns and the other activities.
Excellent, Professor. I think you started off this discussion with the really foundational levels of confusions we see in terms of how marketers see their portfolios versus their counterparts within the departments, how they see. And for me, I felt this is a very relative situation, because end of the day, when you talk about budgets, your mind tends to compare yourself to what you had in the previous years, and then you say, okay, I've got less or I've got more, and that is purely dependent on the kind of industry that you belong to and where the industry is moving to, and the economies of scale around it. For example, even the geographical sense. If you're today in Germany, maybe you are different from what your counterparts in UK get to emerging markets like LATAM and India get. If you're in a, let's say, consumer goods, I think 2023 later part of it or 2024 beginning, you will find suddenly more surplus with your budgets compared to a fintech counterpart of yours. So I feel there is a the relativity is very high in terms of how you perceive the budget. For me, I think what stands up is the tech piece of it. You nailed it, Professor, when you said there is so much of pressure on getting the ROI out of your investments now. The scrutiny is tremendous. It maybe at the peak of COVID time when everybody was going digital and digital was the mantra to go after to grow better, go global, and the funding was pumped into that. And everybody thought you don't get fired to spend more on Martechs and digital advertisements, etc. And then at the later part of it, as the tailwinds were still further on pushing you, you just put in more money and more money. And I think after that, in early part of 2023 is the headwind that hit everybody and said, all right, we did so much now, where are we? And can you continue the growth that you were promising us? And that's where I think a bit of stringentness and scrutiny that has come into the budgets. And it's a healthy thing. It's a good thing because I feel with AI coming in and Gen AI especially, and the abilities to do more with less, that seems to be the mantra now. And if that is the case, I think to an extent, most of the CMOs do agree their money is being spent in a plethora of products. And in the hurry of getting everything done faster, they've bumped into every single piece and stitched together a big platform which not necessarily you have to spend. There are options for you to reduce the cost, have a connected experience, keep it simple, but yet impact to the campaigns you do can be very high. So some of these things come to my mind. Your thoughts?
I think it is also to do with the competition in the industry. So recently, I was talking to a very senior executive from one of the general insurance firms in India. Now, the problem that a lot of executives face is that you all are now focusing on one particular channel for acquisition of consumers. Now, this particular channel ends up being the Google search engine marketing channel. Of course, the other channels are also very useful, but this being the channel where most of the consumers start showing their intent and start going into getting an insurance. I'm talking generally about general insurance like motor and other things. But of course, with term insurance, health insurance, also this works. The amount of money that is involved in terms of bidding for keywords, in terms of running your campaigns, and overall, when you look at the customer acquisition cost, many times this channel becomes not so profitable. But can the CEOs decide not to spend money there? Probably they cannot, because then they are giving a free hand to the competitor who might be able to acquire customers at a very cost-effective manner also. So this is where, because of the hyper competition that exists, and because everybody is trying to go behind some of these channels, people are less and less creative in terms of creating organic campaigns or generating more engagement without having to spend money. Of course, today a lot of companies have been forced to create organic campaigns which might not require a lot of media buying, as we say from the traditional space itself. So this is one example of an industry where competition makes the CMO having to spend money despite knowing that this is not something that is giving them any fruitful results, because you want to have that customer in your kitty rather than getting the customer to a competitor.
Excellent.
Addy, I just wanted you to chime in here. So the performance marketing is bringing you a lot of leads, of which, many of them are ready to buy. So, it's bottom of the funnel. But there's this huge chunk of those leads which are not going to get converted really. And in that case, does nurturing still hold true? And is that going to work? What do you think?
Yeah, like going back to what Professor said, at times when the scrutiny is higher on where you're spending across the start to the end journey of a marketer, which actually doesn't stop at you getting a lead, because once you get the lead, a good fit versus bad fit conversation comes in. That filter has to come in. How do you nurture and keep the good fits in conversation, so that you don't put the pressure on your sales to have that kind of an engagement, so that you can run with a leaner machine, but you rely on automation to work with potential good fits to be there with your brand. And then when they are ready, you should be able to pull them. So marketer's job no longer ends at top of the funnel, of the middle of the funnel. It carries on till the time sales picks it up and converts, and then again picks it up to get the word of mouth and keeping customers for life. So the journey is no longer a small one. So going back to your question, Suma, nurturing a lead at the top of the funnel is paramount. Anyways, all these ad tech, Martech tools, the creativity, the Gen AI's ability to generate posts, drafts your emails, draft your campaigns, make you look so sophisticated and nice. All of your social posts, everything is good in the beginning. And everybody is doing that now. The access to technology is there for everybody. So how do you stand out? How do you stand out as a thought leader? So that is where your originality around your content, your products and services you do, the ability to stand apart from the crowd using your USP comes in very handy. And I think that's where marketers get very creative these days. You no longer just spray and pray, because that zamana is just gone. For those who don't understand the Hindi word, that period of where you spray and get a lot of leads is gone. Now you need to be very personalized. You need to be original. You need to leverage personalities who could be your ambassadors, and that's the new thing that's coming up. So nurturing top of the funnel involves all of these, but more importantly, once you get those leads, the bucket full of leads, you don't want to have a plate full of holes. And that's a joint work between not just marketing but organization wide, especially the sales and marketing, the marriage that we have to see there between those two. When you rely on automation, when you rely on workflows to keep them happy, keep that engagement on, and then when they're ready for a potential purchase discussion, when there is money that is seen at the end of the tunnel, is when the marketing can seamlessly hand it over, and sales then comes in with much more intensity to close something and convert that. And that's where you get your dollars worth. So marketers are always judged on how much you spent and how much have you got. How you do that, what scale you do that, what channels you do that is all part of the job. But end of the day, fundamentally, where did your dollar go? How many dollars did come in? Very simple. And that's where this nurturing automation, relying on automation to nurture, and then giving good fits to the sales who can convert better, and then keeping them as customers for life. That is super crucial. And that's where the technology comes in. I'm keen to hear Professor's thoughts around it as well.
Right. So I think I will just make it a little academic as well. So generally, when we go to a classroom and we talk to young minds or talk to senior executives, and we ask them how is that an organization thinks about budgeting. Generally, there is going to be a budgeting involved at two levels. One is where the C-suite decides on what budget should be provided to each activity, each function. So there's a certain amount of money that goes to a viable, good R&D project. There's a certain amount of money that goes into the operations function for capacity development in terms of new facilities. There is going to be some amount of money that goes for training and development, and there is some amount of money that goes for the marketing function. And unfortunately, a lot of this money is going to be in terms of percentage of sales. So you have generated X amount of revenue in a particular year. You decide to spend, say, 7.5% or 11%, depending on the industry. You might decide that this is going to be the overall budget that is available. Now, that leaves the CMO with a lump sum amount, which the CMO has to then allocate to a lot of different campaigns. All of them are going to be complex. So there are generally two ways in which the second allocation or the second budgeting activity takes place. One is what is called as a heuristic process. Again, I'm sorry, I'm being a little academic, but I'll try to explain this in simpler words. So the heuristic model is what generally seems to be applied across the industry because that is easier. It is also called anchoring and adjusting. When I say anchoring and adjusting, I decide to spend X million dollars into a particular digital campaign. And then I see what is the return on ad spend, like Adi, you rightly mentioned. You're looking for what amount of revenue you are getting from each dollar or each rupee that you're spending in an ad campaign. This is what is return on ad spend. So now you are now looking at spending X millions on a campaign. You are then judging the return on ad spend from that particular activity, and then you're comparing it with something else that you might have spent Y million dollars on a different campaign, maybe a traditional campaign, and then you're trying to adjust based on your ROAS and based on what kind of objectives you have for the next year. You're going into an anchoring and adjusting process. This is easier with all the pressures that we have, with everything that we have to do in terms of being a CMO. We generally go into this kind of a model. This is not efficient because this model oftentimes fails to look at historic data that we have. It fails to look at the attribution of each of those campaigns. So, like you were rightly explaining, if I was to talk about the entire funnel of how I start the interaction with the consumer and then how the consumer goes through the entire journey, each and every touch point, and what is going to be the throughput or what is going to be the incremental rate of conversion that I'm getting from customers who are going through all the channels. And if I use this historic data to create an attribution model, I might be able to allocate my budgets very efficiently. Unfortunately, without technology, this might not be very feasible. So today, when we come into the realm of AI and when we talk about predictive analytics going into predictive AI, and when we talk about how explainable AI is also going to come into the picture, I think CMOs might want to focus on some of these elements to ensure that they are able to use historic data to come out with models that are actually beneficial to them. Second is the element of attribution challenge in the digital marketing space itself. This also, when we talk about the funnel, this also becomes very, very critical because you have consumers who no longer are engaging just with one particular channel. In the past, I would have seen a television commercial. I go to a retail store, pick up something. Today, that's not the case. I start with something on Meta, then I go into a Google ad, then I go into an Amazon ad, then I go and watch an influencer-led campaign and use an affiliate link to come down to the Amazon page again and then buy. Who should I give credit to? Which platform should I spend more money on? Should I spend money on all of them? Should I not spend money on some of them? And again, if you think about it, the ad exchanges and the big players who are delivering these advertisements don't want to be very transparent and forthcoming when it is about data. So Google doesn't want to talk to Meta, Meta doesn't want to talk to Amazon. That becomes a big challenge for a CMO who is trying to integrate and put together everything and then come out with a model that works. So these are some of the things which will have to be streamlined. So like you said, using the journey of the consumer and using a funneling approach, fixing responsibilities for each stage and ensuring that each stage is accountable in terms of optimizing and improving their performance. All of this together has to be brought in. And unfortunately, this is not going to be a manual process. It cannot be done manually. So recently there was a student who came to me and he asked me in a little bit of a nervous tone, Prof, do you think we are not going to have jobs in the industry because AI is coming? Sorry. So I don't know how it came up, but the answer that I gave him, maybe I heard it somewhere else, but the answer that I gave him kind of made me think a lot afterwards as well. So the answer that I gave him is like, no, it is not going to take away your job. It is going to be a battle between people who know how to use AI and people who don't know how to use AI. People who know how to use AI will become more efficient, will become more effective. They might be able to get things done quickly. They might be able to work on 10 projects simultaneously. People who don't know how to use AI are likely to be not finding relevance in the industry any longer. So it is going to be a battle between who knows AI and who doesn't know AI, who knows tech and who doesn't know tech. And CMOs, unfortunately, don't have a choice. They will have to go into the domain of tech, but they will have to go it in a cautious, judicious manner, not spending on all fronts that they see as giving them some opportunities.
True. I remember doing a podcast recently for HubSpot with my global head Christian, and this was the topic. We said, "Are we losing out on jobs? Some of the jobs that are probably being replaced now with Gen AI coming." And he said something very nice. For years together, when innovation happens and when something new comes up in tech world, there is disruption, but it's always been a positive disruption. It's It's always intended to make somebody more sophisticated, more efficient, do more per day. And compared to our parents, I think per day we do as much as what they probably did 2 3 days put together, because we have access to making so many decisions so quickly with aid of all this. But apparently they say Gen AI is a very different impact. It is one of the monumental innovation. So that's why the scare in the market, especially people who do not understand that well. But end of the day, that is only here to aid us to make us better. So we will see market adjust to that. We will see resources adjusting, the colleges and institutions adjusting to it, preparing the future resources of our country or the globe generally to be able to work alongside and be more efficient. And it is a positive thing across. Your presentation to the market will be better, the market's adoption will be better, you avoid a lot of fluff. Yes, there won't be place for heads to hide behind pillars and get away with it. you will you will always see that justice is done to people who are smarter and creative, no wonder. And that's the right way to move forward. I think humanity has always moved ahead like that.
I think
And
it's pertinent to quote Dharmesha at this point and say when
I was about to say that as well.
he said AI will take your job, but it will give you a better one.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think Dharmesh has been leading with some of the adoption of AI into the products that we use, and the way we can help a lot of millions of customers actually grow better with that. I remember when we launched, we were stunned to see the capability of that, where your best of your creativity can take you at times, but a collective wisdom of all the creativity across the world built into a capsule and then thrown at you is how I was stunned at. The Be it the creation of reports and the ease of which you get data out instead of spending hours together, instead of having that the stress on the minds. Conversationally, you say something and get out was unbelievable. I would have never imagined something like that, despite having so much of experience in the CRM world itself. I never thought once I would be able to speak to a system and get something in the format that I want. But that's as simple as putting the AI, Gen AI into work. My team puts in LinkedIn posts as if it's from a well-trained, experienced marketer who's been there for decades. And my team is a simple sales team with a bit of experience in sales. But that's the magic that all of this is doing.
Right. It also is going to help a lot of small enterprises, because the small enterprises might always have a problem with getting the right kind of resources to put up good content. They might not be able to hire an agency to generate all the creatives that they want. So it will do wonders for small organizations. So like we had the internet revolution, where it kind of leveled the playing field with organizations which had significant budgets and organizations which might not have had significant budgets but had the zeal, the passion, and creative people who were driving these campaigns. So this would be another leveler in terms of not being able to hire as many very capable creative guys in terms of writing, in terms of other kinds of content. So Gen AI will definitely help these people. But I want to also highlight another issue. An issue in terms of you take any channel that we have used in the past for communication with our consumers. When the channel is new and fresh, there's a lot of attention that consumers pay to it.
Right.
For example, when television came in, the initial companies which put out television advertisements were getting big bang for their buck. Radio came in, the same happened. When you had internet advertising, the initial firms, Nike, etc., who went into the social media space, they were getting a lot of returns, which competitors were envious about. So this is going to happen with Gen AI as well. But then, over a period of time, consumers who are smart, human beings generally, I believe, are smart, they also pick up cues that there is going to be a lot of similarity between things that are going to be generated using Gen AI platforms as well. So anything that is going to be at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of the human input that goes into the Gen AI tool, if it is not as good, then I think the AI over a period of time would be coming out with content which might not be as appealing to the consumer. So that is where the human element is still going to be relevant in terms of making the tool as effective as possible, so that you cut through the clutter, you get into the attention stream of the consumer, you get a response from the consumer in terms of an action which can then be converted into a lead, and then you use other tools to finally get money out of the consumer's pocket, which we all like to do. Right? So I think that human element is still going to be.
Absolutely. And you have so beautifully given us a segue back to the topic that we've been discussing here on where are the marketing budgets being tightened up and how do marketers defend the need for a budget in this kind of situation. And I was reading an article. I've forgotten where it was, the source of it, but it kind of very well articulated where the world is moving and the big changes in the marketing and branding scenarios that are communicated wide. What do I mean by that? Typically, like you rightly said a while ago, we will get used to this new thing. Once we get used to it, we will have the brain power to think and filter out the good ones versus the bad ones, or the ones that we really want to see. We don't know how much longer this takes, but we all know by the experiences over the decades that you just mentioned that eventually we will get better of this and we will see the diamonds from the dust. And in that process where a brand needs to come out as a winner, what they're now focusing is on the originality and the ambassadorship, basically personality driven marketing. They are looking at true stories, stories that are going to appeal to you and me because they've happened to somebody and I can also feel the impact of it if I were to associate with this brand. So you will always see more, although the celebrity led campaigns might decline going forward and be replaced by original stories, the stories of people who are the helm of being the top influencers just by being the users of something. So that's a new thing that's coming up, and marketers are now favoring investments around that. Now, everybody has to be smarter and all that. So you have $100, then you're thinking where to invest. And like you rightly said, Professor, there is no point in investing in something that everybody else is doing. It's better off that you create something that can be making you stand out and then get the eyeballs that you deservingly should get.
As you were telling me this element of creating personalities, I also was reminded of Professor Henry Jenkins. Professor Henry Jenkins is a professor from University of Southern California, and he is the one who has been speaking a lot about transmedia storytelling. Now, transmedia storytelling is something that I would want all CMOs to explore in greater depth, because there are two basic elements that he talks about. Of course, he is a very well-renowned author, goes into a lot of technical elements of how communication takes place, etc. But two important things to remember. One is that every channel has its own strength. Every channel has to be utilized in terms of the strength it has. Not all channels might carry the same kind of content. So if you take a banner advertisement and if you put it on a channel like YouTube, right, you understand the element of stupidity there, because it's not something that would work on a channel like that. So transmedia storytelling is where you take the entire story, break it down into smaller pieces, use different pieces of the content on different channels so that consumers will get a different story or a different part of the same story on different channels. That is one element to it. So you use the channel for its strength and not just create content which is going to be applied across channels, which is what we generally know as cross-media storytelling or cross-media communication. Second is try to avoid or try to eliminate the difference between what is real and what is advertising. So we see a lot of campaigns happening today where you find that the consumers are actively taking part in the commercial itself. So I remember one of the campaigns done by a premium automotive manufacturer was to showcase a particular capability of the vehicle, and the capability of the vehicle was to have a good audio recognition system. So you basically are talking about the Amazon Alexa or the Siri or something of that sort, where you can speak into the car and the car understands what you're saying. So they created a campaign where they created this entire storyline where the consumer, who is the TG, can actually speak into their phone, and on the screen they could see the entire story playing out. So I could tell the character on the advertisement how I should move forward and how the entire advertisement should go forward. And interestingly enough, consumers were spending as long as 45 minutes playing this game. They were trying to tell characters to take a left turn, right turn, drive straight, get down, this, that, etc. And you crafted it into a suspense thriller movie kind of scenario. So now consumers are spending 45 minutes in an advertisement where marketers generally are finding it difficult to get consumers to pay 10-second advertisement pay attention. So that is where some of these creative elements actually work well. I'll give a few links so that you can, so that the audience can also read through and look at what I'm trying to say. But the challenge here, coming back to the point that we have, how do we justify budgets for something of this nature, something that is extremely creative, something that might be completely out of the box, and something that might not have a precedent in terms of telling you whether this works or not. So that is the risk that the CMO will have to take. But just to add on to the element of Martech and AI and how you want to choose the platform that you want, my suggestion would be to focus on two elements. One is efficiency and one is effectiveness. When I say efficiency, how can you do things better? How can you do things with lesser number of resources? And when I say effectiveness, how can you do things that you were not able to do until now? New capabilities, new activities, and things like that. Then I would want to break the entire set of activities that are in front of the CMO into at least three different domains. One is going to be the customer interaction activity. Second is going to be the customer management activity. And third is going to be the internal processes that the marketing function has to take care of. At least at these three fronts, if we were to create a metric about increase in efficiency, increase in effectiveness on three of these aspects, and then list down what kind of tools do we need to have, where do we want to have generative AI, where do we need to have predictive AI, where do we need to have conversational AI. All of this will help the marketer understand what kind of tools do they need to bring in. Second, they might have to quantify the increase in efficiency and the increase in effectiveness in a rupee or a dollar term. The simplest analogy that I can give you is in terms of what we study as activity-based costing in an accounting class. We look at each of those aspects. If it was done by a human being, how well would they do it and how much time would they need to take as compared to a human being doing it with AI or an AI tool doing it independently. What could be the savings that you have? Rather than looking at sales as the holy metric, we should also start looking at cost savings from the marketing function and then see whether it justifies what is the break even, in how many years do you get all of these returns and things like that. And the third element would always to have a bird's eye view in terms of all tools that you have. Integration of tools oftentimes is a major challenge. You might have a lot of different tools that you have procured, but then unless all of these tools get together into an umbrella, you're going to have more headaches and more nightmares than getting to that goal that you had intended for. So these are some things that I want all CMOs to start thinking. It might already be late if you have not started thinking about it, but at least at this point, CMOs should start thinking about all of these aspects.
So when you were talking about who will bell the cat for something probably expensive or out of the ordinary or out of the box, it reminded me of an article I read in HBR a while ago. It talked about three C's for the things that happen in the marketing world, from the conception to somebody taking leadership and going ahead and making something, which could be asking tough questions and which could be taking some tough decisions and betting it on something that is unconventional. And they zeroed in on in that article very clearly for three things. And I remember it because it was three C's. It was clarity, I think clarity of thought and clarity of the choice you have and the decisions you have to make and what does it actually means, the strategy, the campaign, what it actually means, that clarity. And the other C was for the courage to make a decision, courage to ask for a question which is tougher, saying if you spent a lakh or 10 lakhs or 100,000, whatever dollars, if this hasn't worked, then why are we spending again? Somebody has to ask that. Or is there a better way to do it? That's where your example, the connection to that example came in, saying, can you have the courage to take something that is not done before? Something it appeals to me. I know the clarity of thought, but can I take that? And then the last one was the connection, because it is no longer CMO's only baby. We should now, I think everybody knows in every department, not just marketing, success is a very collaborative and collective endeavor. So it's no longer a silo job that you do. The collaboration will yield into getting a lot of better perspectives, so that the risk of something going wrong is also mitigated for the organization. Is That's what came to me. Suma, I'm very conscious. Me and Professor have been doing a to and fro and not letting you speak in between. But
No, not at all. It's been very, insightful. One thing I wanted to say was that with Martech investments, the productivity of Martech usage has been coming down steadily in the last couple of years, according to Gartner. How does that tie into this whole story? Like, if the productivity is low and I'm going to go and ask for more money for Martech, that's going to get shot down, right? So with AI coming in, so there is this complexity that is still emerging here, because loss of product, it's not as productive as any earlier, and it is too complex, like the professor said, and AI is here. So now it's all complex. How do we address that?
So in my opinion, I think every tool, every technology, every process, every change that an organization makes would require some amount of time to settle down. So this is where even AI or any other technology that is brought into the organization would have a certain learning curve. So you cannot hit the peak immediately as you have invested things. So this is a period that every organization will have to endure to ensure that they are getting the employees trained in terms of what technology it is. They are able to get the right kind of processes in place. They are able to mitigate any risk that comes with use of Gen AI in terms of their brand guidelines and things like that. So I think organizations which want to go slow, organizations which want to ensure that they are spending sufficient amount of time to get into this process for the long haul, those are the organizations which are seeing that productivity drop. And I think that is inevitable. We wouldn't be able to do without it. Everybody needs to learn new things, and that is why there would be a drop. But I feel this is just a transitionary phase where organizations are seeing this. But very quickly, we'll see organizations getting a higher productivity from the investments that they have.
Yeah. My take on that is also very complementing with what Professor said. Uh, I think we need to be more conscious on the cost of productivity now. Just because I have inherited as a CMO a plethora of systems and a huge team, it doesn't mean you continue with that and hope for things to become better without you making any changes. So somewhere there is a decision that needs to be made when you're seeing a loss in productivity and the cost associated with it. It could be streamlining the resources. It could be streamlining your infrastructure. Like Professor said, the cost of integration of multiple products is a huge thing, and the effort, and you don't know whether you're going to get 100% out of that exercise, because seldom have I seen people who pay money and buy products use the products to its full potential, because of whatever reasons, because of the periods in which certain purchases would have been made or the contracts you have in place. You tend to live with the process that has a bits and pieces of everything. It takes, like going back to that courage word, it takes a courageous CMO to come in and say, instead of these 100 things in my stack, I will limit it to 10. Brings the cost down to 50%, but the efficiency of or the output of this exercise will be 50% more. So you not only mitigated the cost of productivity, but you have also improved the efficiency to improve the productivity. You might look at the team and say, all right, my team is huge. Everybody is doing everything. Why don't we leverage on the right things to do and make others who are probably free from the mundane job to do something better and leverage their creativity much better. Thereby, you have a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of a thing. Instead of just doing the way it has been done and not having the courage to change, I think that is a crucial piece. Some bit of change agent would be required to identify. Gen AI will come. There will be something else, a better version of that will come. Lack of productivity is old age problem in everything. It doesn't matter which department you are in, what you do. Over a period of time, you will notice that the productivity will decline if you don't improve. So ability to improve, ability to get up from your chair and make a decision. You have to make that first move. A leader is somebody who actually foresees the problem, uses the data to analyze, make sure the data that he has is the right thing, and then takes an action on it. If you're not leveraging the data, if you're just going by the run of the mill and chalte aa run, basically, sorry, my Hindi comes in, you, it has been happening, so I will move along with the river. No, it doesn't happen. Things are changing. Market is changing. Buying behavior is changing. Selling is changing. Presentations of products and services are changing. The consumption patterns are changing. Where the buyer and the seller meets, the life cycle is changing. No longer do you find a buyer unaware of what he or she wants before they talk to the seller. Good old days, when I started my career way back in early 2000s in Oracle, I would go into a bank and talk about some stack which they had no idea about. So my conversation to them was, oh my God, is this real? Is this something that's happening? Because the access to info and knowledge was very less. Today, no matter who is talking to me, they know HubSpot better than me. I actually learn more about my products from customers who have done their research, their homework before they come. You will not spend 2 rupees on something that you have not thought through or known about. How will you pay hundreds of dollars into a software where you've not done your thought process right? So I think it's very important for leaders to adopt, understand how market is changing, understand the behavior patterns, the needs of the market, and see internally, oops, I have a lot of productivity issues, my inefficiencies are heavy. Let me get up, streamline that, make some decisions, adopt something, make it simpler but high impact. That's the take from my side.
So just to add to the oops that you mentioned, I think there is also a little bit of what do you say, a leadership style change that is required from CMOs. Recently, I was talking to a group of very senior executives. Most of them have gone through the ranks right from being on the field and ended up being at the CMO position. And many of them have this, of course, many of us don't want to acknowledge this, but we have the habit of going top down because we have seen the market, we have seen the field, we have seen the consumer, we have worked on campaigns, we have worked on the brand, we have struggled through the ranks. So we feel that we have seen it all. But now we have to start realizing that we might be in a completely different domain. It might be completely different from what we have seen. So hence there is a need for a lot of unlearning, a lot of understanding of the entire ecosystem, especially when it comes to a senior executive. They need to do this, and I believe that a lot of members in our teams who are young, who are smart, who are from this digital native generation might be able to understand technology and understand the application of technology much better than a CMO. So I think there is a lot of need for empowering the team, especially the youngsters in the team to suggest new ideas, to be able to brainstorm how you can make things happen better, and that kind of culture needs to come into a lot of marketing organizations so that everybody feels that they are a part in this transition. It's not just the CMO who is going to in a way issue an order and everybody has to follow that kind of culture will not help a lot of organizations. So a very participative, a very democratic process of bringing ideas from the bottom up is something that CEOs should start accepting, and probably that should be the new way of leadership for a CMO in this technology-driven era.
So that leads me to the next question that, one of the patterns is that there's going to be the CMOs want to spend more on MarTech, but not as much. They're going to decrease the amount of investments on the team itself, the resources, the labor. Okay, so that is a pattern that Gartner has put out. And now MarTech is getting more complex. You need a collaboration between marketing and IT to come together and work as one team. So how, and then, there is this new generation that is digitally native, which is very good with the creative stuff, but not so much with the technology stuff. So there is another level of complexity for CMOs, because without those people, what are they going to do? So what are your thoughts of that?
In my opinion, I think it's always like in engineering, we always study a control system. I don't know whether engineers are going to be part of the audience, but we study a control system all the time, wherein you provide an input and the actuator seems to be moving in a particular direction. Then you have a feedback mechanism that gives another input so that you can bring it back. So there is always going to be an oscillation before you come into a stable state, whichever control system you take. This is how an engineering classroom works. So that is going to happen even in the marketing world. There is going to be a lot of investments that are made. Some of them will work, some of them will not work. Unfortunately, this is what I started off by saying. There is an anchoring and adjusting model. The anchoring and adjusting model is where you will invest certain amount of money and then you will realize that, oh, I've invested in technology. I might not need human resources as many, but over a period of time, they would realize that they would need human resources for something else. So my suggestion for CEOs would be to not let go of people, but rather get these people to be ready, trained, and equipped so that they can take on the responsibilities that might come 2 years down the line. So that is something that needs to be done by CMOs to start planning for what kind of capabilities do they need to bring into the team. Like you mentioned, people who are good creatively might not be good technologically. They might need to be equipped with the technology sense that is required. For people who are technologically very capable, may not be as well creative, they might need to be provided the complementary skills. So that is how CMOs should look at this transitionary phase.
Addy, you have anything to add to that?
I agree with Professor, and I think uh, you see a trend, especially since early last year. The layoffs are part of every organization across the globe only because it's a generally it is a reflection on them not seeing the future and making an assumption that the growth will stay as is and the tailwinds will remain as is. I think the lack of foresight on the potential headwinds and such a collective global headwind has led us to have a market which is more stringent and more tighter and grippier, and there is so many top resources without a role to play in any organizations. So a decision to take away people can be dependent on whether you have no roles to give them or you don't know what to do with them, or is it so much of surplus that you have that you cannot really run the business efficiently. And all of them are valid reasons and most of them are capitalists, so you have to be really looking at the good side of the money. I put in $1, I need $10, and that's it. So it's not an emotional conversation, it is more about how the businesses should be run. But like Professor said, a CEO or a CMO or whoever is a CXO should be that wholesome leader who comes across to drive a thoughtful journey to his or her team based on the abilities to see better than others in the team. And then if you could find opportunities, if you can find areas that you not ventured before, if you could I was talking to one of the customers recently, and that customer was in fintech, and they said they were looking to fire a group of interns that they weren't sure about, and they felt they're just wasting time, while the interns were data researching and data analysts kind of interns. They were fresh graduates. The amount of data depth that they went and came back, they kind of started two business units because of a ability to do complementary services, which the company hadn't done for the last 5 years. So letting go people, letting go everything, putting your hands up is very easy, but an ability to see if you can have somebody really propel the business in another way that you wouldn't have gone is a great achievement, right? That's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in. So sorry to take the question on a tangentially another level, but it is important even in the marketing, because marketing is changing, the world of marketing is changing, the branding is changing, the way we perceive brands are changing, and maybe some fresh thinking, fresh minds will be the futuristic thing. How do you collab with Gen AI and then come across leveraging the Martech tools that you have and come across something that is unique. Maybe it's a new path for everybody else to follow. So those are the things I'm very curious. Every time I talk to customers and every time I talk to CXOs, I'm always on the lookout of what is that unique thing they're doing. HubSpot platform generally, they're using the platform very good, all that is fine. But I'm more keen on how is that platform aiding their business? How are they growing better? How are they going to areas that they've not gone, geographies that they've not gone, the lines of businesses that they have not gone, and how do you grow horizontally also, not just deep. Back to you.
Cool. So should we now go into a final recommendations on what CMOs should, how do they secure more budget so they can fully execute their strategy? Building up
Okay.
stick models and all of those. What are your insights on that?
I think CMOs should definitely try to push harder for bigger budgets. It might not be an easy option because AI is not something that only CMOs are thinking about. Every organizational function wants to get into this wave. Every organizational function sees a lot of opportunity in terms of technology, especially technology that might be ML or AI driven. So that is why everybody is going to need a lot of budgets. Most organizations today are thinking about it in a wholesome fashion. So there is already somebody who is taking care of digital transformation of the organization who will have budgets across functions. So CMOs should start working with them. But while CMOs see a lot of opportunities in terms of generative AI, in terms of a lot of other tools, CMOs should also have a broader vision of how this tool is going to help them in their particular industry, in their particular segment, in their particular funnel, and in their particular way of conducting business, including the number of people that they have. Try to always focus on what I mentioned earlier, the increase in efficiency and the increase in effectiveness, and try to quantify this increase in effectiveness and efficiency. Try to see how is that you can justify the budgets, how is that you can arrive at a logical conclusion as to when the organization can achieve break even with the amount of investments that they're making. Be patient in terms of the returns coming to them. There will be a little bit of a lag when they install something, implement something, bring in a new technology or a tool, and when it is going to start becoming productive, as we said. So being a little patient is important, and more importantly, also start focusing on unlearning what they have been doing for all this while. Try to learn a new set of tools themselves so that they get the big picture. And always remember that this wave is going to be adopted quickly by the competitors. One thing that we teach in a marketing strategy class is to always assume that all competitors will react. At this juncture, I believe that the competitive reaction is going to be in terms of technology adoption rather than a price war or rather than a beautiful campaign, etc. It is going to be technology that is going to be at least the future of competition for most industries. So CMOs themselves need to take charge and lead the transformation in their organization. That is what I feel. But yes, of course, ROI is always going to be paramount in everything that we do.
Awesome. From thanks, Professor, for that. That's a beautiful nugget. I think our audiences who will watch this will have a book and a pen when listening to you. From my take, it's more traditional a bit, where I'm looking at CMOs to use benchmarks. Like they should make the case for the investments, especially when we started, we spoke about which industry you are in and where the industry is moving at that current time of the market. And you can use the benchmarks from your peers and other things, other places. But also, I would encourage the CMOs to not drop the ball on the marketing sourced pipeline, because that's gold. Obviously, we spoke about nurturing it to through the sales up to the sales cycle and beyond. But the importance of marketing sourced pipeline is a direct relation, even though it's a like that's why I said it's more traditional approach, because it's been what you've been doing and you have to stress on that. But avoid yourself coming across as a cost center, because marketing is not necessarily just a cost center. Marketing should work very partner with sales and become a profit center, where now the need for doing something so in depth and intense with marketing is as much important as sales. So You cannot, as a CEO, you cannot consider marketing to be a silo cost center. It's a combination of sales and marketing which is generating revenue. So marketing is also a profit center. You need to break that myth. Um, and then obviously you have to market your marketing. I like that statement. You have to communicate regularly with executives and peers, and you have to tell your achievements, and you have to always show how you are aligned with what organization is putting across as a goal. It's very important. Otherwise, if you don't cry, you don't get milk. That's what the saying is. You don't have to cry, but at least showcase the the innovation that you're doing, showcase the results you're generating, and make a case for yourself. If you don't market yourself inside, how are you going to do marketing outside?
I remember we had one customer and they were doing this community webinars and all of that. And there was internal questioning, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Let's shut it down. It is just overheads and all of that. And but one of the salespersons piped up, no, you cannot shut this down. When I go into meetings, they already know about us because they have seen a webinar of ours. So, don't shut it down. So I think at that point, marketing and sales came actually really together to actually back for the company. So, that's how it works. So do you have any more
Last point you mentioned, Sumaji, actually summarizes everything that is inbound marketing. So that was a good.
I am surprised, Professor, you brought that because that's a very close to heart topic. We can go another hour and a half only on inbound.
So do you have any more questions, Addy?
No, it was a wonderful conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed insights from Professor and yourself. It's a topic that is very relevant today, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will resonate with some of the tips and tricks of the trade that Professor shared. It was a beautiful experience for me. Thank you for giving that. Thank you, Suma, for the opportunity.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor, for
Very
being here. I think our community is going to really enjoy listening to you here.
I too enjoyed interacting with both of you because mostly we don't have these kind of conversations every day in a college campus. So it was a refresher. Of course, I keep going and talking to people. It also helps us understand the industry perspective. So definitely something that I also enjoyed.